reflections on the PJ legacy, PJ at 91. I wonder if my listeners want to come and join and say their piece. We give you five minutes each. 5 minutes each. No, well, I can't give John 5 minutes. Joshua?
Peace be unto you, sir.
Yes. How you doing?
I'm as good as the Lord permits. I'm listening to Professor Protecting,
Yes.
How are you, sir?
I'm fine, John.
Greetings to your listeners.
The birthday of one is significant. So is their death. Thank God, Mr. Patterson is still with us. It is a good time for us to examine his contribution to Jamaica. A man who has served for 14 years would have had a significant impact on the lives of Jamaicans, and to also remember that he was in the political narrative long before he became Prime Minister. I shall return. John and PJ did return. Did he return to our benefit, or did he return to our pain?
I'm glad you started with that question, because I'm more inclined not just to think, but based on our experiences, our combined experiences, especially for those of us who are in our 50s and some of the others who are late 40s coming into 50s. And even those over that age, 60s, 70s, and even 80s and above, can only remember, we can't remember any significant milestone that is positive as it relates to PJ Patterson, and this is not to be unkind. If we search very hard, we can say Emancipation Park with 2 naked persons were built during that period of time. And this was to demonstrate how emancipated we were. And if we're going to say nakedness makes us emancipated, then it's a poor way to demonstrate emancipation. Right?
but that's art, though, Joshua.
It is art, but I think it's a poor reflection. I think something else should have been used to demonstrate our emancipation, because you have to remember that it's not just adults.
Not to mention the endowment of the man.
Right. And we have to remember that park is not only adults alone that would be seeing those statues, but kids would be there. And so.
But Joshua, let's be real here now. You are doing a living eulogy of Mr. Patterson to your listeners. Almost 600 people listening to you right now, and some watching on YouTube. What type of prime minister was he? How do you would you describe Mr. Patterson in Jamaica's modern political life?
Corrupt and selfish. Those are the 2 words that come to my mind immediately. And
you would tell Mr. Patterson that to his face?
If you know me better than that, neighbor. If no one else on this live knows me, you know me and know that I would tell him to his face.
Yeah, let me ask you this though. PJ lost no election, and yet you can't come here and tell me good things about him. How did he win 3 consecutive elections?
All right, so we must remember that PJ Patterson was the person in charge of the electoral machinery of the PNP for most of Michael Manley's life, right? He was that person who was really responsible for ramping up. And he was one of the 3 major brains behind the PNP in terms of organizational strategies. DK Duncan being one, and Mr. NIA, Trevor Monroe, being the other. Those were the 3 persons who were really responsible for organizational strategies in the PNP. And so his organizational skills in terms of politically is to be admired, right?
I'm sorry. Yeah.
But unfortunately, he made the PNP into an electoral machinery instead of a governance machinery, right? And I think the electoral machinery was to the detriment of what a political party should really be about. Because a political machinery should be about proper governance and ensuring the betterment of the country and at large the people. PJ Patterson, as I said before, I am working very hard outside of Emancipation Park and the carrying out of the original mandate of building that bus park in Half a Tree. By the way, it was not PJ's idea. It was a gift from Belgium that was originally to be done under Edward Philip George Seaga. Now, I know PNP will run out and say, Joshua lie. But ignorance has ignorance cannot confront truth, right? And until you know history, then I would advise those who would hold that position to remain silent, right? And those are the two landmarks in terms of quote unquote positive and semi-positive that I would say. Other than that, PJ's Patterson legacy was marked by the first foray into over 1,000 lives being lost in Jamaica, the first foray into lawlessness in Jamaica. I mean, wanton lawlessness. It started under Michael Manley. It was stemmed under Edward Seaga because you know the nature of the man. And wanton lawlessness in every way. Lawlessness on the road, you know, the bus system was chaotic in as much as we had Half a Tree bus park. The selling off of assets, the deprivation of the black middle class of their financial resources, which was really a return to the 70s. The creation of FinSAC, which shambolically was said to have been for the relief of those who suffered loss as a result of the high interest rate policies, but was really created to destroy the black middle class, right? As I said in passing, the high interest rate policies and even people taking their own lives, we saw for the first time Jamaica was rated the taking of life capital of the world under PJ Patterson. So this is part of the legacy that he brought to Jamaica. We saw for the first time under PJ Patterson, corruption was wanton, right? There are so many scandals, it's hard to remember some. Under PJ Patterson alone, we had about 27 scandals. Combined with him and Michael Manley, we had about 33 scandals that we can remember. Under PJ Patterson, we saw over 44,000 registered business, and I want to differentiate the registered business separate from those that were unregistered, because remember, we are largely an informal society, and it can easily be said that for every registered business, there's 5 unregistered business. So if we use that number, 5 4s is 20, right? And with the 44, we're talking about close to 300,000 businesses that we lost easily under the PNP, right? Easily under the PNP. We saw the wanton shutting down of the manufacturing sector, 150-year-old landmark in the form of Mutual Life. We losing that under PJ Patterson. The decimation of our financial sector, the decimation of our commercial sector at large. We saw capital flight and brain drain under PJ Patterson. In addition to that, we saw the shutting down of Home Electric, Warehouse, Bandag Retread, Berwick Battery. All of these things that we did in Jamaica.
Tire Warehouse.
Right, Tire Warehouse. Warehouse, because Tire Warehouse came
No, not Tire Warehouse. Goodyear, if I say.
Right, Goodyear Tire Factory. Right? We saw those who were rich getting richer. And when I said those, I'm talking about foreigners coming here. We saw people advising government and making themselves rich from it, which has never happened in the history of Jamaica before. The closest we have ever had to that was when David Core ran off with the NIR money under Michael Manley. But prior to that, we never had anything even remotely close. We saw high debt, and super interest rate policies that were geared to make the rich richer by issuing government bonds, lending to to millionaires so that they could remain richer. We saw wanton injustice in as much as the man was a lawyer himself. We saw for the first time a politician passing a rule, right? A law that makes him receive his pension would be equivalent to the sitting prime minister's pension. We have seen no other prime minister before him or after him did that. We saw for the first time handcarts being taxed, patties being, all of these things under PJ Patterson, the highest taxes that this country has ever faced. In fact, we saw the introduction of a new kind of tax, which initially we were promised would have been used to replace income tax. Instead, joint income tax, and not only joint income tax, but within the first year of its implementation, we saw an increase of approximately 2%. And when the finance minister, the then finance minister, spoke about it, he was fired for speaking against it in the form of Hugh Small. This is the kind of legacy that PJ can clearly say that he left to the Jamaican people, right? We saw the continuation of the raffle system under NHT that PNP love to brag about, where you would be contributing for years and you would never be sure whether or not you'd be getting any benefits from NHT because of that continuation of the raffle system that existed under PJ Patterson. We saw Operation Pride, where they revisited and building board houses for Jamaican people without any form of latrine or toilet or anywhere to relieve themselves. And we saw the largest scandal within any housing ministry in the form of NHDC under PJ Patterson, right? We saw for the first time in Jamaica, when government contracts were being issued, 20% of that government contract that was being issued, whatever the value was, would go back to the PNP's campaign financing. And we saw for the first time in Jamaica, continual cost overrun in government issued contracts, right? And not just cost overrun, but time overrun. There are so many negatives that I feel like my brain is already freezing, neighbor. I am genuinely sincere.
Joshua, don't try to cut you, but we only have like 5 or 10 minutes to move from where I am, because I'm at work.
No problem.
So I just want to say this before. So you can take me down after this, neighbor. But I'm a 100% Jamaica Labour Party supporter, and I will be until the rest of my life. But we with 3 terms, and we are in government right now. But until I can hear these utterances no more, I will say this country is under the Jamaica Labour Party for good. Like utterance from people from Westmoreland saying that they have no worldly water, they have no pipeline, but yet still they would not vote for the Jamaica Labour Party. Who's trying to correct that right now. Utterance is like we used to the bad road, we got a river, got beard, and these all type of nonsense utterance from PNP. I would say we on the right path. Get what I'm saying? So I will support. I will not stop support because I see where my country is heading and I see where it's coming from. But until we can stop hear these utterance and the neglect of the country, where these people sure say them neglect the country, because to where the country coming from, to where it is now, the utterance of them have out of them brain, out of them head, out of them mouth, it's not very nice. And people with hear this and things say, boy, if they never come to Jamaica for a 10-year period, they would not want to come here. So just to say, that's my view on things. But we are in a strong position, not to say we are in a very strong position. So big up yourself, neighbor, and going back to work.
All right. Thank you very much, sir.
Sorry. Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah.
me too. And I want to continue just a little bit. For the first time in the history of of Jamaica, we saw wanton neglect of public buildings. We saw where, for the first time in the history of Jamaica, the private sector had to step in to pay public sector workers because government could not afford to pay.
Stop. Joshua. History is really a guidepost, and you are saying, I don't want to cut you, sir, but I think sometimes when these things are said, it is important that people pause to get an understanding of what you have just said. You are saying to me that there was a time in Jamaica when the government was unable to pay its workers.
Yes, sir.
And that is documented. We have evidence to support that.
Yes, sir.
That the government of Jamaica could not pay its workers, sir?
Yes, sir. The public sector
How
had
many
to
How many Jamaicans know this?
Unfortunately, not too many. And it's not because the information is not there. It's just that we're not a reading nation. We're not a research-based nation. And it proved itself in terms of our electoral results. Because if we were a reading nation and a research-based nation, those three electoral victories that you spoke of regarding PJ Patterson, he would never have won it. After the first term, he would have been gone. And if we were a research-based nation, the 400,000 plus persons, whether they got paid or they went out of their own accord or they were forced, right? They would not have voted for the PNP. PNP would be extinct by now. And this is also deliberate. It brings me to the next point also, sir. For the first time in Jamaica, we saw the removal of civics from our school. Now, what is civics? It tells you how government operates, how government should work for you, right? What are the benefits to be derived and the responsibilities of the respective areas of government and the different arms of government, right? I believe it was deliberately removed so that you could not hold your politicians accountable, right? Because if you don't know what to expect and what is their role and responsibility, then you don't know what to hold them accountable for. And then what they would do is come around and on a close to election is to give you a pittance, right? For the first time in Jamaica, we saw the removal of mental ability from the school. Again, that was deliberate because what it therefore means that we have an entire generation that grew up who are not thinking people. They don't think for themselves. They don't sit and rationalize what is in their greatest interest versus what is in their immediate interest, their immediate benefit. So do I take $5,000 now and vote against my own interest going forward? Or do I give up the temporary pleasure and make the right decision for the long-term good? And that is why mental ability was removed from school, right? For the first time in Jamaica, we saw where politicians could just steal as they please. The first time we ever had a furniture scandal before Dennis Gordon furniture scandal was under PJ Patterson. So PJ Patterson is the father of furniture scandal. And that is why Dennis Gordon feels so comfortable in doing the same thing. For the first time in Jamaica, we saw our roads being totally neglected. We saw for the first time in Jamaica, the government racked up a debt of $7 billion to a public entity.
Mr. Joshua, you are depressing, Mr.
It is very depressing to even think of it.
Dismal picture. Huh?
It is very depressing to think of it also, sir. That is why people took their lives during that period of time, because they were so depressed they couldn't deal with it, they had to exit. That is the legacy that he left, a very depressing legacy. So when he came out to set the
my
record
God.
straight, the record is still not straight.
Uh-huh.
That is the legacy that PJ Patterson has left on Jamaica. You know. PJ Patterson, under his stewardship, set us back 50, 60 years. Now, why do I say 50, 60 years? Though he did not reign for 50, 60 years, we, first of all, before we can begin to move forward, we have to stop the
Yes,
hemorrhage first.
absolutely, sir. Absolutely. Right. Because you talk, you know, sir, Scratchy. You know Scratchy.
Yes, sir.
Said some time ago that the system failed him. In other words, the system as designed at that time should have been to advance people. You know, Joshua, I see sometimes I go to the banks in Jamaica and when you stand up in the line, Joshua, people them can't use the machine, you know. Some of them can't read.
Mm-hmm.
You go to the tax office, Joshua, and the people them can't fill out no paper. You see them struggling. And you ask yourself, who failed these people? It is that period, Joshua. That's what you are saying, that we're not going to recover from this. Some people are going to never recover.
Some persons will never recover, but thank God, God has raised up a prime minister who actually cares, right? And the only PNP politician, prime minister that Jamaica can ever say really tried was Portia. And she was the least educated of them, but she's the only one that tried. And they disparaged her and disrespected the lady. And when they want to win the election, the other day I saw the current leader, Mark Golding, sending out, putting something on his page about Portia Simpson Miller, the same lady who they disrespected and called dunce, with their hypocritical self, right?
Yeah, I asked Protecting Jamaica earlier that when PJ Patterson said in Halfway Tree that Portia was the only hope for the PNP, that's PJ admitting that he failed.
Yes, sir. Because if your legacy was such a good one, or I wouldn't even go as far as to say good, if it was a reasonable legacy, I don't even reach a stage of good yet, reasonable legacy, then anyone who is at the helm, you would have felt
who succeeds you.
Pardon me?
Anyone who succeeds you.
Right. Anyone who succeeded him and took on the reins of leadership for the party wouldn't have to worry about whether or not they are electable, because your legacy would have been reasonable enough to keep the momentum going. But what they strove for, as the PNP has always strive for, is popularity over performance. That's what the PNP strive for, popularity over performance. And that brings us poverty. So the 3 Ps. Popularity over performance brings poverty to the people. That's it, you know. Popularity over performance brings poverty to the people. Those are the 4 Ps of the PNP. Right? For the first time under PJ Patterson, we saw us unable to fix our roads and the selling off of government assets to foreign entities. That's when cement company was sold. That's when bauxite company was sold again. That's when JPS was sold again. I remember somebody telling me, and this is a high-ranking member of the PNP. Well, he's not a high-ranking member. He's a founder of the PNP, right? And I remember once we were having a conversation, and he will remain nameless. And he said they brought an investor from India to take over the Riverton City dump. And the government would have been getting money from it every single month. They wouldn't have to pay anything to maintain the dump. There would be recycling and all of these things. And the then Prime Minister, it is alleged, asked for $20 million before he will approve it. It is alleged by this person, by this donor. And the investor got upset and went to another Caribbean territory. That's the legacy. where nepotism was the order of the day, a continuation of the 70s.
Yeah. Before I return to protecting, he's online here, Joshua.
Yes, sir.
I note that the PNP, since PJ left, they have lost 4 general elections and are on course to probably lose a 5th. Is this part of PJ's legacy that the PNP is irreparably damaged?
I think, the sad part about it, it began with PJ, but it's also being continued by Mark Jefferson Golding.
Well, he was never prime minister.
No, he was not. But because you asked about electoral victories, that's why I'm responding this way. Because Mark Golding was a part of the PJ Patterson team. He was not a part of government then, but he was a part of the team of advisors and the creator of FinSac. And instead of learning from the errors of PJ Patterson and seeking to repair the breach, what he has sought to do was to corrupt the party even more. And not just the party, but every sector of Jamaica. He has sought to corrupt. The media, you name it, the judiciary, and to influence them in a corrupt way. Right? And that is why the PNP to this point is irreparably damaged. Until they can shed the albatross of the PJ Patterson legacy and get rid of that man from England whose 4 parents were slave owners within Jamaica, right? Who seeks to disrespect the natives and the descendants of those enslaved people. They will never win another election. I think it is safer. I heard Connecting said something, connecting the dot, that is, that I would never go that far and say it, but I understand where he's coming from. He said it is easier for a band of criminals to get together and form a political party, and he supports them, than to support the PNP because they are more honest than the PNP.
Wow,
that's the kind of political party. It may sound harsh, but it's the truth. It's the harsh truth. They are far more honest than the PNP. At least you know what they stand for. The PNP says one thing and do another. When you look, when you listen to their bloggers and the level of spurious speeches that come from their mouth and the lies that they tell so freely, then it tells you who their leader is. When you look at the list of corruption that is happening currently under the current leader, right, then it tells you what is the nature of the current PNP, and that started under PJ Patterson.